Welcome to the Outsourcing Blueprint, where scaling your business gets smarter, not harder. Hosted by Scott Smith, an outsourcing expert with over 20 years of global experience. From India to Alaska to South Africa, Scott's passion for people drives his mission to help you build powerhouse teams created for success. Grab your coffee, your boldest dreams, and your blueprint. It's time to build the business you've always wanted. Let's go.
All right. I want to welcome everybody to the Outsourcing Blueprint. We are here today with Allie Zendrian from AtoZ Communications. Hi, Allie. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks, Scott. How are you doing?
I am so great. It is hardly fair to everybody else in the world. So it's a lovely day down here in the desert Southwest in Phoenix. A little bit colder.
I'm jealous. I mean, the desert in Southwest Phoenix sounds fabulous. So Long Island, comparatively is chilly. Although I take it you get chilly as well, especially at night and first thing in the morning, right?
You know, we do this time of year. In fact, we have a freeze warning, which is a big deal for us here in the desert, and it means that if we cared about our plants, we would cover them up. And I did that once and they all froze anyway. So now I don't bother.
Mine would freeze even, no matter what I did. So yeah.
It just doesn't matter, right? Things are just going to freeze. Yeah, that's what happens in the winter. Everywhere else in the world, here in the desert, it's a beautiful, wonderful day. This afternoon, it's going to be probably up in the 50s or 60s, which is balmy, right? In comparison.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk a little bit about you and a little bit about your business. So if you don't mind, if you would kick off by telling us a little bit about you and your business offering.
So Allie Zendrian. So I founded AtoZ Communications going on a year ago, actually. So I do public relations. For those not familiar, it's sort of marketing's sister or cousin, however you want to think about it. I try to explain that if you're not really familiar at all, sort of the free version of marketing, because marketing you have to pay for an ad. That's technically not really true because if you're working with me, I still have to get paid too. But arguably the slightly cheaper cousin. So what we're doing instead of doing advertising in particular, so you're doing press releases. So you're trying to get your news into the media that way, pitching reporters. So I might say, Scott has a great story to tell about his daughter Lizzie's podcast and how fabulous it was. And so, XYZ reporter, do you want to hear about it? So we might share things that way. Or thought leadership is becoming a really popular way of getting news into the media because then A, you're controlling the narrative, and B, because there are fewer reporters, which we might talk about later, that seems like the most logical way to get included into the media.
Interesting. So you said a couple of things that I want to just kind of follow up on. So the first was press releases. Are press releases something that you and your agency specifically manage?
Yes. So we do, and it is R. The way actually that I got into all of this was that I was a grammar geek. In high school, I copy edited the high school paper. I did the same thing in college, and then the health and fitness editor. Then it just blossomed into there. I started as a journalist and then went into public relations, but all that to answer your question, because it was about press releases. So yes, we do that. So the way that I try to look at them is I think a lot of people want a press release because it just feels like that thing that you can point to and say, I know about press releases. I saw in the news last week, or I saw on Yahoo Finance, there was a press release and I want this. And there are plenty of times that that's totally the logical way to move forward. If you have news, so they're really news releases, if you want to think about it. So if you have, new services that you're offering, there's new staff, there's a trend that you're noticing and you're sort of involved in it in a way that's important, then it involves a press release. But it seems like a lot of people put out press releases and they're really more like marketing releases. So it's not something necessarily that a reporter would be interested in, but you still want to put it out there. You can do those. There's nothing wrong with them. Just, fully acknowledge that a reporter may not care that you redesigned your website. It just seems like one of those things like yeah, we do those every now and then. It happens.
Hey, we've redesigned our website, and then crickets, right? Because
Yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Right.
because the people
And
that use your
you never
website
want
are
a
going to
client.
know that you redesigned it because they're going to go to your website and they're going to see, oh, it's different.
Well, there's that. I mean, I could understand that you're trying to get new users by telling them that you redesigned your website, but also, to your point, it's one of those things and it happens. So, you can definitely put that news out there, but just fully acknowledge that that's not going to be the thing that the reporter bites on. I mean, obviously, if you have something in addition to the fact that you redesigned your website, like hopefully, maybe you completely rebranded yourself and really the website is not the news, the fact that you rebranded or you just nabbed a fabulous client with your redesigned website. That's the news. So I try to help people find the piece that actually belongs in the press release, and then maybe we can back in on like the fifth or so paragraph. By the way, redesigned website. Um, yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. That's actually good information to understand kind of how that flows and how you manage that. You talked about thought leadership. How does that really come into play? Because that's a really big thing today. People talk a lot about becoming a thought leader. And it's one of the reasons that people want a podcast, for example. They want to demonstrate that they are a thought leader. Thought leader, it's one of the things that got me into podcasting was somebody talked to me about needing to make sure that my thoughts not only are mine, but that I'm sharing them with people to help bring them value and help them recognize that I really do have experience and understand what I'm talking about in the outsourcing domain in particular. So, how do you utilize that and help people play to their strengths?
So I think, and it's interesting that you brought up podcasting in the conversation of thought leadership, because certainly it is one of those ways of becoming a thought leader. So as you're showing your expertise in this interview and showing that you have a value to add, you're becoming a thought leader.
Sure.
So I think in these kind of podcasts, or even in podcasts where you might just be speaking out into the void, which was actually it was how I started my podcast, which is only in episode 5. But I don't personally like speaking out into the void. I'm very conversational, and that made it 2 episodes. And then I brought in a co-host. But that is a way of adding thought leadership out there. I have analyzed the news, and this is what I'm showing to you. So that's how you can do it. But so as far as thought leadership articles in particular, so you feel like either A, you really have a presence, you don't like seeing yourself on camera, which some people do and can't get over for whatever reason. You don't like hearing yourself. Other reasons, or you just need to outsource that to somebody. So depending on your thought leadership, arguably it wasn't really written by the person. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But that might be where somebody like me comes in and you outsource it to them. But so you want to give your flavor out to people and give that expertise. So in crafting thought leadership, we'll come up with some kind of, again, like what's a trend in the media that you're seeing? Is there some news that we can sort of hijack your expertise onto, and then, raise and elevate your brand that way? Is there just some kind of message that you feel like you've tried to tell a reporter and they don't care, but you still want to get out there? Then you can kind of get leadership to get it out there. Again, so then you still have to be able to sell it to a publication, or then you have to say, you know what, it's going to live on my blog, and I'm happy with that too. But that's sort of the next step in the process.
That's interesting. So, you've talked about several things there that I want to circle back into, and I do appreciate that. So, one of the things that is popular today, and that really is using storytelling to help to get your message out there and how powerful that can be in building brands. And would you talk a little bit about your views on storytelling and how you might utilize that to help get someone's, brand message out there as a PR person?
So fabulous question, Scott. So thumbs up, high five to you. But so I'm going to credit some of my response to a fabulous colleague of mine, Diana Cabrisis of Diana Cabrisis Consulting. If anybody's interested, she does brand evangelism in financial services and for fintech companies.
Okay.
But so she kind of coined and really put out there that people don't buy from brands, they buy from people. And so when you think about it, even if you take, I mean, I guess, so I had cereal this morning. I was trying to relate that to I bought a brand. I really bought the brand in that case. I don't think I bought it from a person. But, for instance, I will specifically go to certain businesses, or, I buy my pizza specifically from the one that is most comfortable to me. They treat my daughter like she's a princess and get her milk every single time. And so I will
Yep.
go to you, and there's a story there. Versus, I don't order from whoever it is who can get to me faster, who is cheaper and whatnot. So that's where we try to use either in our pitching. So then we'll humanize what you're trying to say. And it's not just, my business is up 50% and here's why. If your business is up, Scott, yours in particular, then that probably means that somebody that you're consulting with also went up, whatever it is, maybe 4 times that.
Correct.
So what's their story and why is that? And what happened in their case? So really then your client is sort of the best voice for you. So whether then that's pitching them to reporters, or you can do a testimonial, which depending on the kind of industry that you're in is accepted or not accepted, or might have a lot of compliance with it. But ultimately, I want to hear from an end buyer about their experience with you more arguably than I want to hear from you about what your services are.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? Because, and I like what you said, and you said it's Diana Cabrisis. Is
Yes,
that right?
she is fabulous.
That's great. Yeah. I like what you said there about, buying from people. I do that all the time. That's a huge part of my purchasing decision on a, day in and day out basis is when I'm making that decision, I try to buy and do business with people that I know that I'm comfortable with and that I like, right? There's kind of that whole, you know, like no trust framework that people talk about, in the sales process. And it feels like storytelling because we're compelled by stories, right? So when we get to the base and understand what somebody's story is, because we tend to personalize that, we tend to apply it to ourselves to see ourselves in that same story framework, and there's a whole concept behind it that you're not the hero of your customer's story, right? They're the hero of the story. You can be the hero of your own story,
Mhm.
and so what do we do to help kind of guide them through to help them get to their goal, right? And it feels like AtoZ Communications and your focus on public relations would be able to really help your clients be able to maximize the potential of storytelling and helping people because somebody else said the other day your brand is not, it's not a logo. Your brand really is you, and
Yep.
you are your brand, and so people want to buy from you. So for me, I'm not a shoe company, right? And I'm not gonna give a shoe company any free play, but I'm not a shoe company, and so people aren't buying me because I fit well on their feet. People work with me because they have faith and trust in me, and the guidance that I
Mhm.
give them and the decisions that I help them to come to are going to be, what they need in their business. So, and I'm assuming that people come to you for the very same reason.
Agreed. And just because I was thinking about it and wanted to bring it into this conversation, to put a pinpoint in testimonials and using that kind of technique, it's also a way then to build more brand credibility and to help your clients. Because if you're getting the word out that XYZ client did super well, in conjunction with and because of Scott, everybody wins in that situation. So win, win, win all day long. But yes, thank you. I feel like people come to me in particular. Back from my days when I was in healthcare PR, they used to use a phrase in the hospitals that it was find the yes. And so I will always try to find a way that we can get your message out there in the way that you want to. If I tell you no, it's probably literally because I've racked my brain and I can't come up with an answer. And the people in my sphere, I probably probed and they haven't come up with an answer either. So the answer really is no. But yes, I will work with you in whatever way possible. And, we'll find that special little hole somewhere to get that message across.
I love that. Now, one of the things that you mentioned a minute ago was people outsourcing and outsourcing to you. So, first of all, as an outsourcing consultant, I want to thank you for recognizing that, outsourcing doesn't always mean sending work to a foreign land, sending it to a different country, sending it to a team in India or the Philippines or wherever. When you're doing work that's outside a core company's business and they're sending that work to you, they're outsourcing that work to you, right? So, and it's important to recognize your role as somebody who's involved in the outsourcing process. Have you had the experience of working with outsourced teams, whether that team was yours or that team belonged to, maybe it was in another country, or have you had experiences with some of that work?
So off the top of my head, what came to mind is so in my prior agency, Street Cred Communications, we worked with STP Investment Services. So they do financial services. They're based in Philadelphia, um, have a very large operation. Actually, I think is basically equal to their staff in India.
Oh,
And so we were working to try to get to understand how the two services work together and how having that presence in India then means that they really can provide like 24, 365, basically all the time coverage, which is amazing. And then means that you're not trying to pay somebody in the US, to stay up overnights. I don't know how anybody who work overnights, I don't know if they do it. God bless them all. But
amen.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, trying to understand and get that work recognized, and then also how it was fueling the work in the US. So yeah, certainly have a lot of respect for all of that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And something else that you just said, I started my career, so like you, I am actually a little bit of a grammar fanatic. I know I didn't exhibit that with my, but
It's all good.
I
We all make mistakes. We're all human.
we're all human, that's right. But I was actually a proofreader when I first started my career for a large financial communications company. And I did that overnight, every night. And I
Wow.
would proofread financial documents and shareholder communications documents all night, every night. And it was great work. It was tough, and my brother, who is an attorney, once said he didn't understand how we didn't, produce more stork offerings instead of stock offerings because everybody was so tired that they may have misspelled it. And, when you're using just spell check, it may not go, oh, that's a problem because stork's a word.
Stork is a right.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
No, that's funny. So, all right. So
I
how
give you
would,
a lot of credit there. Recognizing myself. So I, as some may say, like I love to write down notes. I've noticed for myself so much reading on the computer, if you're not taking enough breaks in between, I mean, there are words you read it and like you think that that's what it is, and then it's like, wait a minute, so you mean that it wasn't stock, it was stork? Like I mean, I went through it quickly, it looked exactly fine,
right.
So I give you a lot of credit for that.
That's very kind. And I'll share this personal anecdote really fast. I remember at the end of our initial training class, I took our proofreading test and I missed one. And
Well,
it was funny because uh, I was very upset that I missed one. And my trainer, Norma Sheldon, Norma, if you're listening to this, bless you, she laughed at me and she said, "Why are you so upset?" And I said, "Norma, you don't understand. I'm not upset that I, got something wrong on a test. What I'm upset with is that I looked at this and my brain didn't recognize the message that my eyes were trying to tell it, that there was something wrong. I missed that, and that's not okay with me." And I've tried to take that same kind of approach in everything that I do. And I found it to be
mhm.
remarkably helpful, you know. But
Yeah.
with everything changing so rapidly in the media landscape today, and there's so much noise and there's so much out there, what do you see coming? What kind of trends do you see coming for, communications, media, and how do you see yourself being able to help your clients manage that from a PR front?
So I think one of the things that I've noticed, and I mean, it's been happening ever since I became a journalist. So I graduated from NYU with a master's in newspaper journalism at the end of 2007. We were the last graduates. After that, there was no more newspaper journalism. So if that didn't say everything right then and there about how, at least NYU felt about it, I don't know what to say. But there have been, this used to be a much more populated industry than what it is. So there have been a lot of, whether it's layoffs, just reporters being unhappy and, switching into other kind of positions, but there are less reporters to pitch to. And on the same side of things, it seems like there are more and more companies that exist. And so there are a lot of you and there are a little bit of them. So I think that it means that there has to be a lot of patience and understanding in the process. But I think that there's also a lot more gray areas, arguably, that are coming up. So these like journalism-esque opportunities. So whether it's podcasts, whether it's so in my case, I sort of took the bull by the horns and said, I'm tired as a former journalist of not having certain messages received by the media. There aren't a lot of them, but there are a few of them that make it to the cutting room floor. I feel like years ago that wouldn't have been the case. So I created something called Brand News, where as a former reporter and working with former and current reporters, we will take your news and we will cover it ourselves. I mean, I'm perfectly capable of it. I have friends and associates that are too. Why don't we just do it for you? You know? So I think that there's going to be a lot more of that crops up. Um, and then I also think that podcasts are really going to be the way to go. That how else do you get your message narrated out there, and how else do you get it in a way that it's authentically and purely you? You're listening to me, you can tell my intonations, my little quirks and whatnot. Same with you, Scott.
Sure.
But then people really get a sense of, I know exactly who Scott is. I know that apparently he's got a telescope back there. And so,
Mhm.
this is something that he likes. And all of these different things that you pick up on people. By the
Yeah.
way, so those are half marathon medals. I am not this braggadocious, but there was a flood and I lost my office. So this is
That's
what
a
it is.
lot of
But
half
um,
marathon medals, Allie. I think that's something you should brag about.
Well, thank you. I did earn all of those actually, except for one. But I kept the medal up there anyway, and I will say that publicly to anybody who says anything about it. So I did one. I was 6 months pregnant with my son at the time, and I made it. I walked the entire thing, stopped at every single porta potty that existed, but got to mile 10, and the car was behind me, and there was no way I was going to make it to 13. So I said, either I can surrender or I can let it come to me. I'm going to surrender. But I took the medal because I feel like that's part of my son's story. So,
Absolutely. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
yes. But I feel like
Well,
I might not have answered your question. I might have gone on a total tangent and apologize for
no,
that.
no, you did. So you talked about brand news, right?
Yeah.
And is that a newsletter? Is it a website unto itself?
So it is a website, not a newsletter form yet because there hasn't been that much news onto it. I just launched it at the end of last month. So right now, so anybody who is a client of AtoZ Communications, obviously we want to try to get your message into reputable publications. But if for whatever reason that's not happening, it goes on brands, and that's just a product of being with me. For those who are interested in it, but for whatever reason don't want to be a client of AtoZ Communications, there would be a charge to it just because journalists have to eat and pay their bills and whatnot. But yes, so it's a website right now. It has a podcast associated with it. So I host that podcast with my co-host Brandon Gleesy. Shout out to you. Um, and yes, hopefully eventually it will have a newsletter, but right now the news content it's only about 2, 3 weeks old, is a little bit sparse.
Well, you know what? There's going to be a lot happening in 2025. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for you to maximize that message.
Thank you. I hope so.
Awesome. Well, Allie, I appreciate you taking time with me today. Where can people find more information about you?
About AtoZ Communications. So it's AtoZ Communications.biz, brandnews.info. And then please feel free to find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. So my whole name is Alexandra, and then last name Zendrian, Zendrian.
Wonderful. Thanks, Allie. It's really been a pleasure to chat with you.
Likewise. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Everybody, thank you. That's been another episode of the Outsourcing Blueprint. I'm your host, Scott Smith, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Outsourcing Blueprint. I'm your host, Scott Smith, and it's been an honor to share strategies, stories, and solutions to help you scale smarter and live the life you've dreamed of. If today's episode brought you value, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to take their business to the next level. Your blueprint to success doesn't stop here. Follow me on LinkedIn or on YouTube at Akata Consulting for more tips, insights, and updates. Or to get the most value and gain access to exclusive content, group sessions, and even one-on-one time with me, join our free school community, the Outsourcing Blueprint. Remember, scaling your business is about working smarter, not harder. Together, we're building powerhouse teams to help you reclaim your time and create the freedom you deserve. Until next time, keep dreaming bold, building big, and outsourcing smarter. Let's go.